Oh, man,
In big facilities, they do cool it down to allow for, when people get in, they're gonna warm it back up.
Yeah.
So we're anticipating all this warmth
Make a point, yeah.
out of you.
Okay, sorry I'm a couple minutes late. Do we have everybody on here, Brian, that we're expecting?
Yes. I'm still expecting Adam to be in person, but we
Are
have
you guys super busy?
Tim
Just all the time.
cannot be here.
Cam will not be here?
I've been able to find the formula.
That's some family reason.
Okay.
I'm gonna send her a message.
Doug online here. Sig is online.
Okay, well, at this point,
So that should be it. Cool. All right. Well, the subject at this time is recycling. And we have Ms. Nome Shannon from Coeric here, who has put together a very colorful and lengthy proposal, which is great. Thank you. Good job. But maybe in this evening, I'm sure we're not going to read it verbatim, right?
Nope. I've got a summary right here.
All right, cool. Well, unless the city manager had any comments to make, now we will just turn it over to you.
Okay, sweet. So hi everybody. My name's Nome Shannon. I have been with Coeric like 13 years, 15 years almost, somewhere around in there, depending on when you start counting. And for the past 12 years, I've been with the environmental program there and running a backhaul program, mostly getting household hazardous waste out of our villages and keeping them out of our landfills, out of our land. And but over the years, we've done things here in Nome, partnering with the city of Nome to help with your recycling efforts. So you guys know hopefully about the City Recycle Center that's over there across from Napa. It's kind of open 24/7, available to put a bunch of different stuff in. And so for about the past 10 years, we've been partnering with you to help manage that and get stuff where it needs to go, whether that's out to the landfill or into the recycle stuff. And so it's been a good partnership for a long time. One of the things that I hear a lot is, how come you're not doing more, right? How come we're not recycling more in Nome? How come there's not receptacles for aluminum cans everywhere and plastic bottles? And how come we're not recycling cardboard? There's so much cardboard. And one of the main reasons is because we don't have a facility to do that in. And so as you can see on this first slide, that's our facility. It's outside. It's a series of unheated connexes, no electricity. We do everything by hand, all year round. And, we just can't be efficient. We can't have a baler, and therefore we can't take a lot of materials. We just don't have the capacity to do that with no facility. So my proposal and project that I've been trying to work on for a couple years is been, how can we create a facility that can meet the needs of our community here in Nome, but also serve our tribes in our villages, and do so in a way that, considering there's only 10,000 people in this region, battles some of the economies of scale issues that we have. So first thing is that I went through and hired a contractor to do a feasibility study, which you guys all got and had the chance to look over. And I've just got 3 copies of that here. So if anybody wants to take a look, it's here. And then here's a summary, which is probably what you'd rather see.
Would you like us to copy that?
And basically, the feasibility study was finished.
And she's
Oh,
got.
you have some more there? Have more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, sorry. So this feasibility study was finished around May, and
Brian, need one for the record, please. Thank you.
so since that time, Quirk's made a couple decisions on, how to move forward. One of the things that this feasibility study does is it takes a look at a bunch of different options, and Quirk has already said which option they would prefer. So I'm kind of going to go through some of the information. And Brian, if you would go to the next slide, this is our current situation. There's no indoor facility. We're recycling 30,000 to 70,000 pounds of recyclables each year, depending on if we have like a van of batteries, lead acid batteries or not. All of the landfills in our whole region, including Nome, they're all unlined, and they all burn trash at the landfill. So if we're letting lead acid batteries go in there, if we're letting electronics go in there, if we're letting, liquids and transformers, any of those things go into those landfills, which they have in the past, we're eventually going to end up with a Superfund site, which, is what happens after you put a bunch of really toxic stuff. And that's what we've been dealing with military waste and all kinds of waste that we've seen dumped in places over the years. So we really wanted to focus on keeping hazardous stuff out, but we have an opportunity to keep other stuff out, like aluminum cans and plastic bottles and cardboard. Those things aren't hazardous, but we could still be diverting those from the landfill, from the monofill, and being able to responsibly recycle within our community. So, again, we collect materials from all of our villages and the community of Nome. It's minimal. We could be doing so much more if we had better capacity. And we are doing all the sorting, packaging, and shipping outside in the elements. It's hard to tell, but in this picture, it's snowing. So you can see us out there working in the snow. And it just limits our opportunities. Okay. So this feasibility study, it looked at things like sizing and capacity, the location, general operating aspects, health and safety, and it took into account all that stuff. So if you want to see more about those things, they're all in here. Next slide. The current waste streams. So on the left-hand side, it shows our numbers from 2016. So you could see like on the right-hand side, it says the total pounds, and it just kind of varies year to year depending on, what we sent out. But on the right hand, this is the types of waste that we think we can expect to be getting. As far as plastics, paper, cardboard, what we found that we think we would be getting from those different waste streams. Next slide.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Is that chart on the left, is that both Nome and village?
Yes.
And you may have the answer coming up in here, but back one time, Brian, please. So out of these waste poundages that you're coming up with, how much of that stuff is going onward, so it's only processed here in Nome? Or is this all stuff that
So the stuff on the left
yes,
is all being sent out.
on the right?
All these things.
Are you talking about the waste type?
Yeah, I'm talking about this waste type of
Oh.
this stream of these things that are coming in here and the estimates of this. How much of this is stuff that stays in Nome and is landfilled regardless? Or how much of it is, obviously.
Right now,
aluminum cans go
right-
out.
right now, none of that is being captured because we're not taking plastics from town. We're not, doing anything with cardboard. We don't have paper recycling, and we're not doing tin cans or any of that stuff. That's stuff that we think that we could capture and keep out of your landfill.
I see. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Out of the landfill. That was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's on the right, that's what we hope to be shipping out with a new facility, hopefully, or potentially.
Potentially, depending on what we want to tackle.
Right.
We might not choose to do tin cans or,
In addition to what we're already doing.
Right. And that's part of what I want to learn from you guys is, what do we want to focus on? Because in looking at building a facility, we're going to need to get all the right equipment to take care of the waste streams that we want. So that's definitely an important consideration. So next slide.
Thank you.
Yeah. So here's a picture of your guys's City of Nome Dropbox, open 24/7. So right now on the left-hand side, this is materials currently handled by Coeric, so electronic waste, lead acid batteries, dry cell batteries, fluorescent lamps, toners. Currently accepted by Nome, you guys get the aluminum cans, the glass bottles and jars. And possible new materials is we could, if we had a baler in a facility, we could look at taking plastics. We could be taking cardboards and making bales of cardboard and getting it out of here. We could be collecting paper products and, either turning that into a compost product or, shipping it out, although it's worth literally 2 cents. Yeah.
So the left-hand column, currently held by Quirk, that's all going out.
Yes.
Being shipped to Seattle.
Yep.
The middle column, currently accepted by Nome, the cans and the jars, that's going to our landfill.
We, this past year, working with Coeric, shipped Connex full of aluminum cans that had been crushed by the city.
Okay.
But I have since learned that if we had baled them properly, we would have received more money than we did.
So we're trying to get those going as well, even without having a facility.
Right.
And then on the right is obviously what you can do with the new setup.
Yep.
And those cans have gone out for years. I don't know that they go out every year, but we used to have arrangements with the barge people to haul it south for us.
So the city has a crusher or?
Well, there are little crushers around.
Yeah.
But, little,
Oh.
as
That's why our labor costs are going up.
as I say that, the cans that we shipped out, it took us 3 years, Mayor, for this one. We actually did make money because we got a grant through Coeric to help, I think it was to get them out to Anchorage, where we received somewhere around $3,000, I believe.
Just not very efficient, obviously.
Well, and that is because they weren't baled.
Right.
They were crushed with a 55-gallon crusher, barrel crusher.
Right.
And so it made a little 4-inch, yeah. And so we didn't get a good price for that.
I'm just curious, glass bottles and jars, what does that just go to the landfill?
You guys have a crusher, so it's a pulverizer, conveyor belt up to a pulverizer, and it just goes into a 55-gallon drum, and then it can be spread when the landfill gets really muddy. It can be spread into that, and it just solidifies the mud, and you can drive on it and everything, no problem.
It's also possible for that material to be added to asphalt, which is not been done. And that's another way, a whole nother discussion at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and other places in Gustavus, I've seen it, and in Hawaii, I've seen it where they take all the glass and they crush it into a little tiny size. You guys have a crusher that makes bigger chunks, but and then they sell it back to people, and people can spread it in their driveways, or they can use it instead of grass. All different kinds of options, and it's pretty and it glitters in the sun, and yeah. So basically, what we're doing with glass is because there's no money in sending it out. It weighs a lot. It costs a lot to send out, but there's no money in getting it back. It's best to just reduce it and reuse it here. And that's what we would love to do with everything as much as we can, but obviously there's a lot we can't recycle right here. slide. So these are kind of the questions that I want to learn from you guys. Should we use an existing facility or should we build something new? Where should this facility be located? Some of these are questions I've been asking for a couple years, and we just, we've gotten a lot of ideas, but we haven't sifted anything out yet. Should we impose a user fee? How do we offer a collection service with Alaska Waste? What local materials management systems should this facility include? And so these are the things that I'm thinking about right now to help me move forward. And what I mean by the last question, what local materials management systems should we use, is, should we be looking at like a shredder for cardboard and paper? Should we be looking at taking apart e-waste so that we can resell stuff? Should we be, what do we want for a facility to manage materials better? A baler is an example. We definitely want a baler because that's going to help us with a bunch of different waste streams. But so these are kind of the questions, and I'm going to come back to these because these are the ones that I really need help thinking through.
Can I ask a question now? And you may
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I read the study and I didn't see an answer. So I assume the goal for Nome is to conserve or space in the landfill or extend the life of it. That's kind of the primary motivation for the city to get involved in the recycling program of the additional things we're not recycling now. Is that correct?
I don't see it that way. I think that the city could choose to see it that way, although I think you guys have a lot of life on your landfill. I think the way that I see it and the way that most of the people that we've held meetings with see it is that we live off of our land here, and we need to keep this land healthy. And what we're doing by putting toxic stuff into our landfills that are unlined and burning it there is the opposite of the stewardship we want to see.
Yeah. No, you're right. Thanks for the clarification on that. I guess the reason I asked the question is if extending the life of the landfill is one of the goals of the recycling program, not the only one, with the projected volumes that you have listed in terms of these are the annual amounts, have we translated that, or has anybody ever translated that into, that would save X amount of square feet in the landfill, which would extend the life by X number of years? Have we done anything on the city side to look at that in terms of if we have a full-scale recycling program, it will literally extend the life of the landfill 10 years?
We haven't, I haven't approached Bristol, who is our engineer for the landfill. One of the, obviously it's going to extend the life.
We just don't know how long.
We don't have that answer. I mean, one of the big problems for us here are boxes, because, people just throw them, they don't break them down. They take more space up in the landfill, and they are slower breaking apart. So in that and the plastics, those are two big items that we get a lot in the landfill. And if we can reduce that, that certainly is going to help.
I just didn't know if there's any way to quantify it.
Well, we can, we could probably sit down and ask John, give him these numbers and say, what do you think?
Yeah, because then it would help if we have to expend X amount of dollars, then we can say, okay, spending $500,000 will extend the life of the landfill 15 years. Well,
And I think that information actually probably is buried in some of those annual reports.
Well, the annual reports give us the life extension of where we are with the landfill.
Right.
Because as has been some of the discussion is, what do we need to maintain in our landfill accounts for closure?
Right.
And actually, I had a lengthy discussion with the guy from ADEC on that, with John Blees. So, we could look at that. I mean, obviously, that could also, savings there could also be used to offset costs for running this program. We just have, as when I've talked with Nome, we just haven't quantified that yet.
sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh,
So
no.
if we still had the same waste streams that we have today, That just said that we have, I'm gonna round it, I'm gonna use the 20 years. Basically, we have 20 years in cell number 2, and 1 and 2 were the first ones, and then property for 3 and 4 were donated by Alaska Gold adjacent to it. And so if we did nothing, and I'm not sure when we originally moved out there, if it was in the 90s, how many years we've been using that particular site. But I would say it's at least 20 years, if not a little more.
95?
Was it 95?
Well, John,
15, so
Neighborhood.
25 years.
they've actually, if you remember in this report, I should have dug this out, they were actually talking about us getting ready to prepare to open up a new cell. And if we could delay that for several years, that could be a benefit, because we also need to keep in mind, those are not lined land cells, and we do have testing, wells out there to make sure that nothing is moving through the underground.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to suggest that we don't do anything, but just, based on what we're doing today, how much space do we have? Because it was the same thing we did when the sewage lagoons were put in the 80s, I think. And
early 90s.
okay, 90s, and then aeration got added to them, so that extended it a little bit. But I mean, we should have been digging into new cells here 10 years or so ago. And as it is now, with some TLC and some baling that's not going to be cheap, we'll be able to continue to use those for a considerable period again. So just as a point of reference, that we do nothing, we have 50 years worth of space out there, and something like this could change that to 150.
Are the new, what'd you say, parcels 3 and 4 the same size as 1 and 2?
They could be, yeah.
So theoretically, then we have a lot more than 50 years.
Okay, maybe I didn't add that part back.
So we're already at 25 years now, we have 20
Okay.
years to go.
Okay, I didn't add that in.
And we have, so, 50 years every, so we had, what did you say, 50? Oh, you're right.
Whatever we do in there,
Whatever,
it'll help extend it, whatever
Yeah,
that
John will
is.
be there.
I think also you have to realize that would be keeping the rate the same. So we're also
Right.
talking about a port development. We're talking about possible Coast Guard. I mean, we could have a major influx there. We're definitely already getting, increased vessel traffic. So our waste stream rate may be increasing in the future. So something else to take into consideration if we do have if we have John look at the rate and the life of the landfill. Okay, so these are kind of my guiding questions. Next slide. So, one of the things I would love to see is just reusing a building that we already have here. But what kind of buildings are there available in our community already? And we've gotten some good suggestions. But I kind of wanted to put it out to you guys for any ideas that you guys might have too. Are there existing facilities that we haven't thought about that we should?
Are there any of those warehouses left up in Gold?
They would not be suitable for something like that.
So we have the possibility of one of the monofil buildings to get started. We should take a look at that, because we're looking at what we're storing in there now. And it could create some space. I mean, the big issue is if we use this in the winter months, it have to be a roof tall enough to handle a baler. And we would need we have electricity to the monofil building. But we probably need some type of water and sewer for people working there to have access to.
Does it make sense to site it, assuming building costs are comparable anywhere at the current landfill? I mean, is there any advantages to siting it there as opposed to in town?
There is a benefit to siting at the Montefiore, which I'm not trying to take any Nome's thunder.
Oh,
But if,
Monofil or
I'm talking
landfill?
landfill.
now, I know what you're talking about. The issue is that there is a possibility that we could air freight this out, working with Alaska Airlines. So I would think we would want to be as close to the airport as we could be, and also, depending on how we set up potentially small recycling centers. I mean, this is closer for more people than the landfill would be.
also, I think in the case of the landfill, everything's going out there to stay. But in our case, we'd be bringing stuff to this center to then move again. And so taking it, 2 miles out or 4 miles out, whatever it is, and then bringing it all the way back in is just a lot of trucking.
So the plan is none of it final resting place would be the landfill.
Ideally.
And so how, I guess, and maybe that's one of the questions here, is how is it going to get to that baler site or that sorting site? Because, I mean, a baler is one thing, but sorting of the waste stream has to occur as well.
Right.
So, is that something somehow being done, like with multiple cans that you see in Anchorage or someplace where there's a green one and a whatever colors?
So I think this is a discussion we would have to have more with Alaska Waste. And I've already talked to Ron quite a bit, and he said that Alaska Waste, their mother company is a national company, and they are all about recycling. They have a lot of resources about recycling, education and logistics. And they're all for working with us to problem solve this. He said the first thing that came to his mind, and this wasn't in any kind of serious work session, it was just like a meeting, was that, making it easiest for people is to have one bin, commingle this stuff, and sort it out at the facility. But keep it easy for people. Sure, put your plastic, your cardboard, your paper all into one bin. We sort it out. And that way it minimizes the the growth and behavioral change that needs to happen for people.
John, that's what's been called the single stream approach. I don't know what Anchorage is doing, but I know years ago when the communities I worked in were first starting it, you had your one color bin for paper, one color bin for plastics. You had to separate the bottle colors. Now it's all put in, then taken to a recycling center, a sorting center, and then they would sort it there. It just makes it easier so that someone doesn't put something in that contaminates, quote, the paper
Right.
can. So that's where the savings can be, is just sending it to into a single stream, and it would also create some jobs in the community for people to be able to sort these. And then we would be getting cleaner send out of materials that are not contaminated with other items.
Well, and either it's the financial incentive to do it, that somebody's gonna save money by doing it, or it has to be simple for somebody to participate in it. And I just know in Anchorage because I backed over my friend's colored can that he put out.
Oops.
That, he has at least 2 different deals, but I never know, does my McDonald's, oops, I don't buy McDonald's when I'm in Anchorage. What part of my McDonald's order, of which I have seen that boy buy that gentleman.
We're veering off track here.
What part of that bag of McDonald's goes in what container? I have no idea coming from the village.
And that would need to be, a huge educational component would need to happen with this as well, of course. Like, yes, you can put this, but not that. And if we had a single source receptacle, then it could make it pretty easy for people. Having like a 20-foot conveyor belt, and we get people either maybe from the jail or maybe Seaside, or maybe we hire people to sort. And it's pretty easy, cardboard all goes there. Plastic here, aluminum cans here, paper, blah, blah, blah. I think those little kinds of things could be worked out, but also I need to be thinking about, like, in moving forward with this, what are those things that we do want to see as far as sorting, collection, yada, yada. So we've kind of talked about maybe some possible existing facilities. I'm sure there's probably more, but Bryant, if you want to keep going. Part of this feasibility study was to get some design ideas, and so CRW came up with some design options. Basically there were 6 options. One was do nothing, and then there was a series of 5 other options that had different square foot, but also, options as far as a horizontal baler, which takes up a lot of space, or a vertical baler. And so Coeric Board had looked at these, and they really felt like they didn't want to impose any kind of user fees on residents. They just didn't feel like that was fair without people choosing that for themselves. And so they wanted to go with a smaller type of building if we were to build new, so that we keep the O&M down. And we'll be looking for funding for capital costs, but they wanted to see us keeping it at a minimum, yet being able to do everything that we need to do. And so this was if we were to do something new, we would look at something like this. 2,500 square feet could satisfy all the things that we need.
Is there anybody on the line that has any questions to interject at this point, being the rest of us have done so? Okay, thank you.
Cool. Next slide. And so here's a little bit more of the 3A idea. Alternative 3A is it's a smaller building. We could have a vertical baler in there. For a vertical baler, we need like about 15 feet up because of the how high it needs to go. And then you can see here the different alternatives that they gave us, and what the capital costs and what the O&M would be is projected at. And then here's the breakout of the alternative 3A breakout, and what the total annual costs could be. And this is looking at a pretty high processing and shipping amount. And Glenn alluded to Alaska Airlines. We've also, had a really long-standing, wonderful backhaul relationship with both Bering Air and Alaska Marine Lines. Those 2 companies have made it possible for us to do this for the past 12 years.
Pacific.
No, Bering Air.
Oh, I thought you were talking about barging.
No. Adam's department, cargo, has been, dealing with all of our backhaul for. Yeah, he doesn't know this, but yeah. But Bering Air's been bringing back stuff from our villages non-rev for free for 10 years, and they were the only small airline that said, yeah. I had years ago approached all 3 that were here in our region, and they were the only ones that said, yeah, we've been taking stuff into these villages for 30 years. We'd be happy to bring stuff back out. Non-rev. So that's made it possible for us to serve our communities, our villages. Alaska Marine Lines and Alaska Logistics have given, free backhaul on their vans, but it's limited. Alaska Marine Lines, which we share with the city from time to time, is 4 20-foot vans a year. So it's not really that much. Sometimes we have to pay to get more out. But Alaska Airlines, we just went through a little negotiation with them, did a test pilot run, and they want all of our e-waste. They want to backhaul all of it for free because they have 3 cargo flights a week, and every cargo flight that leaves empty has to put on ballast to balance out the plane. So they put about 2,500 pounds of water from, the tap. So that's going through our whole system. And then they just have to dump it when it gets to Anchorage because they just need it for the ballast weight. So for them, working towards their zero waste initiatives, they'd love to be able to help us get stuff out that we need to get out and backhaul for free, as long as, there's somebody there to pick it up on the other side, and we've got vendors there. And so we've got that all worked out. And in November, we did our first pilot run of that. We got 24 pallets out.
So you have vendors in Anchorage, because it seems before you were running everything through Seattle on the barges.
Right.
Now you have vendors in Anchorage.
Yep. We have vendors in both that we've worked with for different products and materials over the years. And a lot of the people in this room have helped out over the past couple years in meetings or in looking at this feasibility study, giving their input, what kind of things should we be considering. They've taken the surveys. We had 90 respondents to a survey that we did in region-wide and got a lot of great information from that. Have held a series of Nome meetings and village meetings, and really tried to do all we could to get feedback from our community and see what's important to people here. So that's kind of a lot of the work that's gone into this feasibility study and pushing forward from here. Next slide.
So,
Yep, no.
I hate to keep bugging you. but,
No.
On the previous slide, you have a breakdown of the cost and the financials, and obviously you've got your capital cost broke down. Looks like the option we're looking at 3A, is that Corex preferred? I thought 3B was for some reason.
No, 3A.
3A is okay, so for
Yeah.
3A, so 2.4 and then about 73,000.
And that's to build new.
Yep, no, I
Yeah,
understand.
yep.
And so under the scenario would say Coeric take care through grant funding, assumably, the capital cost to build it, and then under this potentially the Nome user fees would take care of the O&M. Is that kind of how the model is thought to be?
Yes, except that we don't really want to impose user fees on residents, but we'd like to get feedback on how can we do that maybe with businesses. And, maybe the city would want to make it mandatory for, the bars to have to, and restaurants to have to do aluminum cans. And that's a source of revenue. That's one of our few sources of revenue is aluminum.
You can make money on an Anchorage.
That we can make money on in Anchorage. Yep. Or Seattle if we send them out there. Yeah, either way. So, I want to work on this with you guys. How can we do that? And we would like to look through for grants to get capital costs for equipment, for,
Where it can
all
get
that.
built under this kind of the idea we're talking about, through funding the capital costs, and then the ongoing O&M would be responsible to the city. Is that kind of the general idea?
I don't think that's what she's asking.
How is that all working? Is Coeric
Yeah.
going to be running this program?
No, I think we want to partner. We don't want to take over what's the city's, solid waste management is the city of Nome's thing, right? But Coeric represents the tribes and the villages in this whole scheme. So we really want to partner on this with you. We've got some longstanding grants that we would be contributing as far as labor. So that would be some of this labor cost. We could have 2 guys on site. We'd love to partner with your public works guys on that, and be able to, I don't know, these are the kind of the questions that I need to learn from you guys, what your suggestions are, or what would work or what wouldn't work. I'm not familiar enough with the city's operations to be able to speak to that, but I'd like to contribute a lot to the upfront capital costs. If we were even to use an existing facility, we could still do renovations or, whatever those things are, getting the baler, getting the equipment. all those capital things. I think I can get that stuff with grant money. Yeah, so the
Okay,
O and
that
M and,
having been said, go
I was
ahead, Mark.
assuming the land purchase of zero is one of the things you're coming to the city for potentially, is that the city would potentially contribute some land towards this. Because it has a land
yes,
cost
that
of
would,
zero.
I mean,
Quirk, in a study, the Quirk would actually donate, or one of the ideas was that lot was potentially.
yeah, and this summer, they decided they want to use that lot for a different,
Okay, so that's off, because
It's
this is
off the
2 years
table.
old, so,
Yep.
okay.
so they're gonna do a vocational rehab, training center there.
Okay, so that's off the table.
Yep.
What other, you said other buildings had been identified?
Yeah, I mean, one of the buildings I would love to look at, and also Norton Sound Health Corporation, Angie is super in support of all this. She loves recycling, would like to see more happening here. And I know, actually, Roland, you might know the status, but those 2 warehouses behind your place, are those still owned by the hospital?
Yes.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's just these big warehouses, they've got the garage door, that could be a possible facility. Rollins talked to me about some of his space, but there wasn't really the perfect, like, warehouse type-ish area. I know that there was some, like, Nome Gold, the old Nome Gold warehouses, there might be space there. Yeah, so
So whether you build new or you find a building and rehab it, refurnish it, is it fair to say that between the city and Quirk, we can likely find grant funds to acquire and build the site? Is that?
that's what I'm hoping.
Okay.
I mean, I think one of the purposes of the meeting tonight is to inform you as the elected body of the city what Quirk has found out. Obviously, that I try to make sure everybody knows, Mayor, is that Alaska Waste is not a city organization, and simply what we do, or what NJUS does, is guarantees that they get paid a check once a month, which hopefully gets us a lower rate instead of them contracting with each individual house and having receivables that NJUS carries those receivables. Now, Alaska Waste is interested, because they do this in the lower 48, to give us some ideas. And I think this is where we need to have a sit-down conversation with Alaska Waste and say, okay, if we implement this, what are the upfront capital costs to get this done? First of all, if you're going to do a house, then you're going to have, I don't know how many, what's it, 1,800? Well, it's less than that because we got people in multiplexes. How are we going to handle a multiplex? How are we going to handle the individual homeowner? What is that cost to getting that equipment up here? How do we work with businesses, especially businesses along Front Street, to store their recyclable materials? And how often do we collect this? Usually in a residential, it's once a week to maybe once every 2 weeks. Once a week works well because everybody knows what day of the week they have to put their recycling out. And what are the needs for the businesses? None of that level of detail has been done other than, okay, we know how much, we can save in the landfill. What is Alaska Waste going to have to do for manpower? Are they going to have to put on a different type of trash truck up here, a recycling trash truck? Or can they use their an existing trash truck that is clean inside, so they can bring the material so it's not dirty, too dirty when it shows up at the recycling center?
And I don't know in Anchorage whether it's Alaska Waste or, there was the municipal waste utility. Who actually does what part of it? If more than one agency is involved so that you're paying your blue can to somebody and your green can to the other person, in that process. So, whether or not, I mean, it seems to make sense that, Alaska Waste or whoever is handling the trash in the first place, just handle it all together. But, is that, I mean, does it work otherwise where Scott does one thing and Adam does the other? I don't know. And so anyway, I guess my mind's worrying, working, WHIRR, on these looking at these costs and what this space requirement might be, and I need to check some stuff before I actually throw out the idea, but potentially this could be incorporated into another facility, and just as another bay type of thing.
2,500 square feet isn't very much.
No, it's not.
Especially all the stuff you're putting in there, just because you got that big hangar out there.
Yeah.
You look at that, and
Yeah.
it's full.
Right.
What size is that?
Of massive airplanes, though.
It's like, oh gosh, it's 210 wide by 130, or long by 130 long, whatever that is.
Because I guess if you just, I mean, for those that might recall, the Baylor building that was built on
Beam Road.
Beam Road, thank you, years ago, that was, I don't know, it was pretty tall and
Yeah.
slender type of building. And, I think that the equipment that was in there was used in the first place. And whether it was still there and rusted to pieces is probably, start fresh, I guess, when it came to equipment. But there, if it's a couple $1 million for a building and preparation, of a facility to roll things through, a couple $1 million could go into building something.
So big picture wise, just I'm trying to put the financial building blocks together. Grant funds take care of this facility, wherever to get it built, used, new, whatever, right? That's done. User fees, however it's done, will take care of the
Contribute.
O&M or contribute to the building, collection of the recyclables, the handling of the recyclables, and then whatever is shipped out, the revenues generated from that and combined with the free backhaul, Alaska Airlines, whatever, will take care of that part of it. I guess in trying to get to a revenue neutral
Right.
standpoint. Is that kind of how you
I-
envision it?
I think also in conjunction, there would be some grants that would be, I mean, Quirk, like I said, has some ongoing grants that have paid for labor. And so those would be contributing also to the O&M. I mean, as far as the labor and.
Great.
Yeah.
So I mean, if that's those three sources of money coming in, I mean, it seems to me like it makes sense. Just have to make all the numbers fit, find
Yeah.
the right spot, everything else. But it sounds like you have a lot of support from industry partners to make it all work. And we clean up the community a little bit, or keep some of this stuff. One question: does the same baler work for cans and plastics?
Mhm. Yep.
Anything ties
And
in-
cardboard.
And cardboard. So one baler takes care of everything.
If you remember our Idaho stop through the shop type of
There were
thing.
multiple. Was there just one in there doing everything?
Well, there
There were
was
multiple ones.
a big baler, I think, at the front that was, making the big segregations, and then I think they ran it through a secondary or tertiary, down the road again. But I guess just thinking of having visited that and what it seemed, space-wise, that it's not a small thing to be able to do that stuff, and certainly in our environment where you're going to want to be doing more of that inside than outside on a year-round basis. That would need to be
So what are the negatives? I mean, I see all positives. There's got to be some negatives with this. I mean, you know.
Well, not everybody loves recycling.
Well, I mean, besides,
It's been an uphill
is it
battle.
possible that the cost could far exceed what we think it's going to, and then we get into a jam? Having too many costs and trying to figure out who's going to pay for it. So the cost, I mean, is that a risk?
I mean, of course, yeah, I think that could be a risk, but I mean, we're doing it right now with no building, and you know, I think if we keep our costs down, if it's a partnership with the city, we won't have electric costs, right? Wouldn't have like an electric bill. If we can get like a life water,
Somebody has to pay the electric bill.
right?
Cities.
Right. But hopefully it would be minimal. If we get like if it was out at the Montefiore and there's no water sewer, but maybe we can get some a water setup to where we've got storage and that kind of thing. So we're just paying like a fill kind of fee, not like a connection type of fee. And maybe we're looking at like a life water system or something. It's 20 grand and that's our sewage. And so maybe I'm trying to say like if we can do some upfront costs and so that we don't have these huge O&M things. If we've got labor is covered essentially by hopefully Public Works but mostly work labor through grants. I feel like a lot of what we're doing right now, we've been making it work for a long time. And so just adding this facility, if we're keeping our costs pretty minimal, I think it's pretty low risk.
Would this be seasonal?
No.
This would be operating year round?
Yeah, we're operating
You
year
just collect
round.
everything and then bail everything in the summer? Or?
I mean,
You wouldn't have enough.
we'd
room.
need storage. We'd need a lot of storage. And with aluminum cans, you don't want to let those sit too long. They get pretty funky. Yeah.
I'll say a big reason why the cost for the aluminum cans when we shipped them out was so low was because they were contaminated with mold.
It's a lower price you get.
Because I mean, it took 3 years to do it, to fill up a Conex that size.
But if people rinse their cans before they
You
throw
wouldn't
them
have-
away,
You wouldn't have to do that if you're shipping it out regularly. It wouldn't get to that point.
I mean, it'd be nice if people did because
yeah.
to handle them. But yeah, the reality is I think a lot of people won't.
That last gulp in the Miller Lite can doesn't
I do it when I'm at my,
doesn't get washed out.
all my
Anything
family,
else?
they're all serious. But, yeah,
Just stating the facts.
not here.
right,
One of the questions in the study was how do you do it by pound or by household? Any thoughts on that?
As far as
The fees, the user fees. Like if we were going to start, I think the indicated in the businesses wanted a flat fee, assumably because they typically generate more volume.
Yep.
And then households wanted.
Residents would be typically in any of these would be a flat fee. So
For everybody, maybe one for businesses and one for households.
yeah, like the residents, and I don't even put out a price.
Yeah, I'm just.
Is trying to, but making sure that they know that not that there's going to be a recycling place to help save the city money in other places and to make this work, they need to properly recycle and recycle as much as they can. But we also really need to be fairly targeted on what we want to recycle and, try not to be everything
all at once
all at once and to
build into it. Yeah.
Because one of the community I worked in many years ago, the first place we went for recycling were the businesses. We had a lot of businesses in town, a lot of bars, got a lot of glass, got a lot of aluminum cans, cardboard, because a lot of things were shipped in. Then we expanded it out to the residents. And that was a more successful model. But, there's a lot more conversation. We need to sit down with the Chamber of Commerce to have that conversation with them to make sure they're supportive of this. And that, we've also heard from many of our young people, they want to protect the land. They want to value the land. And I think this is one of these things that can show that as a community, we want to value the land.
So how do you go about, assuming you make all these numbers work, you figure out what the costs are, you got the financial model figured out, how do you assess the rates? And say you figure, okay, every household has a $40 a month fee and every business has and I'm asking, do you opt in? Does everybody pay it?
Yes, you have to, it's all in or nothing.
Well, so basically it would be similar like you'd see a line item on your utility bill, here's what it is.
It's all in or nothing. You
It would have to
can't,
be built into the tariff.
well, that would be through Alaska Waste.
Yeah, well, I guess it would depend on who is, who is implementing and who is doing this fee. If it was something similar to, where, I guess we've got two things going on right now. We've got a city landfill fee of 12 or 13 bucks that everybody, if you have an electric meter, you pay that fee to operate the landfill. And then you have the amount that you pay, 29, 30 bucks for
Collection.
residential for the pickup of your can.
Right.
And so, I guess I can see there being two components to the thing potentially. That again, if Alaska Waste is having to handle more of this stuff, and are they taking it from start to finish so that they are the balers, the sorters, the whatever, then it would be in their fees. If somebody else was doing that, like, a partnership with, Coeric, the city, whoever, then that would be part of the flat fee, I would see, so that you'd have a combination of those.
Yeah, a user fee and a collection fee, just like you guys have for your landfill. Yep, exactly. And then residential being different than business, obviously. I mean, just for example, Ron at Alaska Waste said every single day, AC and Hanson's have a 20-foot Connex of cardboard that they have to pick up. I mean, it's a lot.
Alaska Waste.
It's a lot.
That gets
So-
burnt.
Businesses.
Oh, yeah, they burn that.
Do those all the cardboard get burnt at the landfill? I think that was in
They used to.
Or they just put it, I mean, it's
I
not,
can't imagine,
Yeah.
they just dump the
No.
truck.
Just goes right into the landfill now.
When we were
Yeah.
doing the
Connex full of
feasibility
cardboard?
study, I went out to the landfill multiple times to capture how much cardboard was getting dumped into the landfill as opposed to what was being burned in the burn unit or the burn area, which is triple the amount that is getting put into the landfill than it is daily that's getting burned. Because the businesses are throwing into their dumpsters and residents are putting in their dumpsters. That gets picked up by the waste people because they don't have either transportation to bring it and we don't have the capacity to take it in town. So,
So, yeah, I guess I've never noticed smoke out there, so I didn't think we were burning anything anymore.
that burn cage.
Sometimes it's rolling.
Yep, and that's what they do with all the trash on, I think, the weekends. They put it all right there and it all gets, so whatever's in there could be your TV, I mean,
Hopefully not, yeah.
I mean, literally,
What goes in the burn cage on the weekends gets hauled to the.
over to the other thing
Yeah,
after.
there's just not an attendant on
Just a holding.
Sundays.
Oh, no,
So
I
they
think
put
they're
it
burning it.
there.
on Saturdays, when they have their open
Not on
day-
Saturdays, but
Okay, yeah, but on Saturdays when they have their open day, people will bring their cardboard directly to the burn unit or to where they drop it off, but generally it gets full really fast. So
Right.
the operator will just open up he normally blocks it off and then he'll open it on Saturdays so people put their burnable products in that unit. And that's all I've seen.
Or we add a pellet maker to the cardboard pellet maker to the warehouse.
Yeah,
You
burn it, heat it
And
with
you
that.
make pellets out of it so you can burn them in pellet stoves,
So,
offset some of our.
That was,
costs.
man, with that building out there John was talking about.
I was trying to think of what his name was. But anyway. That guy that
Okay.
hung out with another guy that was here in town. Ralph was the guy's first name, but I can't remember his last name. So did you have more slides?
I do, just a few.
Okay, because I guess we've monopolized, I want to ask the people that go on here, I can't see it anymore. Whether anybody that's on the phone has any, or on the Zoom has any input?
Cargo is 5,200 square feet.
The
Newest
mega?
one. Yeah.
Okay.
Just the
And,
cargo.
I guess that's Doug at this point. And he's not shy, so I won't worry about him.
It's full.
And then there are those that either came with you or are here on their own volition. Is this part of your group back here?
I mean, it's not part of my group, but. Thanks, guys.
Okay, we're happy to see everybody that's here, but I guess I just didn't know.
Yeah, and I mean,
Whether this was the.
I guess too, like, if you guys want to hear from people in the audience and ideas or comments that they have, I would love to give people the opportunity to.
Yeah, well, that's I guess where I
Yeah.
was going, but I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah, let's
So
get
let's
through
do your
these.
slides and then
Okay.
we can go to that.
All right, so next slide. And this next one is just a piece from the feasibility study. You know, we asked people about location preference. It's kind of hard to read this, but basically people, you know, there were people in the villages who said, yeah, I'd bring stuff with me, just like I come in, you know, once a month, I'd bring my stuff with me if there was a convenient place to drop my stuff. And, you know, if we're talking about little transfer stations on, like, you know, the Alaska Waste was saying, hey, if you had this, like, trailer type of thing, you know, separated, people could put their stuff there. We just go hook up to it, take it out to the facility, dump it, and bring it back empty. And so we could have, like, different little tiny transfer trailers throughout the community if we wanted to do that. Maybe we put one out at the airport so that people get off the plane, they can go and just put it right there. Because, you know, we do want to serve our villages. We do want to take into account their ideas and needs. But okay, so that's kind of what this one was about. But I think it really just depends on where we can do it, actually. So next slide, Brian. Again, this one is kind of more about the different costs for the different alternatives, what the different monthly user fees could be if we were to go with one. I don't know how that even comes into play as far as, you know, with residents. Do people vote on that? I don't know. How does that work? But you know, those were some of the things that are outlined in the study that you can look at more if you want to. Next slide. So we had asked our contractors to put together some funding options that were available to this project, and they came up with a whole bunch of really good ones. These are grants that we could seek out together, and I think there is a lot of funding out there that could contribute to that. But if you go another slide, there is a grant that is out right now, and this is one that I'd really like to go for. It's due in April, and it's up to 1.5 million for a 3-year period. It's specifically for materials management and improving local waste management with regards to recycling, and I think this would be a really good fit. They're approximating 60 awards nationally, which, you know, might not be a lot, but I think that EPA has invested a lot into COERC's efforts. I think we've got a fantastic reputation, and you know, they funded our feasibility study. I think we have a good chance. We'd have a good chance of getting something like this. So this is kind of what I want to focus on, writing this proposal, and I need to know what goes into this proposal. Are we going to build a new building? Are we working with an existing one? And I need to do a retrofit, you know, and work with somebody to come up with those numbers. You know, what does this look like? And so this is on my radar next. And then next slide. So back to these questions, you know, this is kind of where what I need to be able to move forward.
How big are the warehouses that the hospital has behind?
I don't know.
I think they're 40 by 60, the two of them, and there's a smaller one in the back. There's offices in the upstairs of one of them.
Has anybody asked Norton Sound? Say,
I had asked them at the very beginning, and they were like, "Oh, we've got all our storage stuff in there," and so that was kind of the last I had heard about it.
That was before they had their new buildings, though.
No,
they
no,
still-
that was as they were moving. Yeah.
we'll run that down pretty quick.
Oh, you mean their latest ones? Yeah, you're right.
Pretty major cleanup this summer.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be ideal if, as soon as available, but we don't know if it's available or not. So
Right.
should probably get that answer pretty quick.
Okay. Yep. I can ask Angie to ask the board. She wanted me to present to the Norton Sound board too, so that could be a question to them.
And it seemed to keep the cost down and probably increase the likelihood of getting grant funding to, if we had an existing facility and maybe retro it a little bit, retrofit it a little bit. Pretty centrally located,
Mm-hmm.
you know, away from residential stuff but still in town on the water sewer grid. So, I mean, that would kind of answer question two. We get that.
And if we weren't able to get that, I mean, could we still look at the monofil? Is that a building we could look at?
That's what Glenn was saying is ideal in terms of being out there.
It's even in there.
It's pretty big.
I don't know that it's ideal, and it's not, I mean, size-wise, no.
No?
It's not. But I guess let's pause on that thing for just, let's look at a couple of these other things. Needing to figure out whether there's existing or new, and I guess the location, when I went back to that other slide, your pie, some people said, like 25% said by the airport, 40% said by town, and I don't know what the other two.
They didn't care.
Okay.
That was
Not care.
That was Adam's answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's because, people were like, well, how would I get there if it's not in town, right?
Right.
But if we have little transfer trailers, then.
Well, and then it's, I guess there's the two side of that. If it's something that's simply just done through their regular trash refuge pickup, hopefully on a regular basis, so that they don't really have to go anywhere. Then there may be others that have are saving, either aren't on the pickup grid and want to deliver their stuff, or somebody that gets just moves in and has all of this packing and stuff that comes along with it, and needs to get rid of it at one point in time. I mean, to me, I guess I mean I don't see that any of this can be done without there's going to have to be some kind of a user fee with it. And it's just a matter of where does that fall? Do we offer a collection service with Alaska Waste? I think that's something the city needs to sit down and have a conversation with them. Bless the hearts of the people that are here. But I guess we need to have a clearer understanding of how the service is going to be guaranteed moving forward. And then what local materials management systems should this facility include? I mean, I guess what I'm taking that to be is like the sorting type of activity, and again, where I was referring to having a group of employees or a service or a company doing something different than just Alaska Waste, or what how am I misinterpreting what that last statement is?
I mean, I feel like Alaska Waste would just be the collection
Okay.
company.
Okay.
And then, this would be like a Coeric City of Nome joint effort to
Somebody's got to run it.
run the
Yeah.
facility. Like maybe you guys would be more in charge of like facility stuff and we'd be more in charge of like programmatic, making it happen kind of stuff.
Okay, so that's the separation there between Alaska Waste and the other part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Between those two.
And what I mean by that last question is what kinds of things do we focus on? Like, we're gonna have a baler. We'd love to have like a shredder so that we could shred cardboard and paper and move that into like a whole like composting deal. Do we want to set up, things to take apart e-waste? I don't know. Maybe we want to have a restore and be able to sell things. Like, we have so many new computer towers and keyboards and all kinds of things that come through, cords that we could be reselling, but we don't have the capacity to do that kind of stuff. If we had a facility and maybe we have a little station where we could just, take stuff apart. If something's brand new, we can repackage it and resell it. And those are the types of materials management that I need to think about as I put together this grant. Like, what is this facility going to look like? What's our focus going to be? Are we just going to bale stuff and send it out, or are we going to be doing other things with that? Are we going to be shredding, or I don't know.
So, I guess 15 minutes in time, giving the folks an opportunity, but not to cut you off.
Yeah,
So,
no, perfect.
Um,
So if you guys have any comments or questions or ideas or things that I missed.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. First of all, thank you for your dedication to this cause, because I didn't think recycling and waste in general around here is pretty bad, and we've got a lot of room for improvement. So I'm not on that. I was down in Washington State, and so I was watching the way because I had to figure out what day was recycling, what day was garbage, and all that stuff. It's pretty streamlined down there, and it's the same exact receptacle size, so it's the same style truck that picks the thing up, so you didn't have to have different kinds of trucks. The only thing that wasn't in the recycle bin was just glass. That was the only thing that they still throw to the side. And then the only thing that I was looking at, as far as your facility size, I was just trying to imagine that operations, some small forklifts, or maybe even small loaders. I think the size of the facility might be on the small side. I think to really make something like that work, you're going to need more space than you think when you're backing up in a forklift to turn around. I think the scale might be a little off on that, but that's easy to fix. Make it bigger. So, but I think some of the things I was thinking about. There's a few other locations I'll mention to you after the meeting that I think might be applicable for you.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, others?
I'd like to talk about what it looks like for a business.
Okay.
I'll talk about my waste conundrum, and then talk a little bit about copy machines second. So, somebody have a calculator? I want to just throw some numbers out. If somebody could just add them up as I spit them out, because I can't do it in my head, and if I try to talk and use the phone at the same time,
Gotcha.
Okay, so we committed in 2013 to be a zero, not a drop of oil out of our facility. And what would that look like? And what that means is that, like right now, if you went to a shop and said, hey, do you have any oil waste going out? They would say, no, we burn it all, right? Because it's free heat. So that's the incentive. But in reality, when you look at what they're doing, when you do a 5-quart oil change on a vehicle, 1 quart of it is in the oil filter. The oil filter gets thrown in the trash. All the rags that get used, when they do a coolant flush, the coolant's all going down the drain, and that's where we were. We were draining our filters. So if you take an oil filter and stick it upside down, it won't drain the oil out unless you punch a hole in the top. It's extremely hard to get a technician to punch a hole in the top of a filter. It's extremely hard to get a technician not to throw an oil filter in the trash. We just caught, Rachel checks the trash and she caught an oil filter. So what did that look like? Well, so we bought an incinerator, that was $8,500, and then we bought a contraption that pulls the heat out of what we're incinerating. That was $15,000. We bought a coolant recycler, that was about 11,000. And then there's a finicky little pain in the butt to operate. We are shopping for a evaporator, because one of the problems we have is oil water mixes are really hard to separate out. So what does that come to?
34.5 without the evaporator.
Yeah. I think overall we spent about 50 grand getting down this road. So that we weren't putting an oily rag out in the dump, because our thought is that oil is making in the environment no matter what you do with your monitoring, well monitoring, whatever. You just give it enough time, it's getting there. So we paid for it by taking that cost, figuring out over how long the equipment would last, and then we just added it as a hazmat fee. So we collect a hazmat fee, and we actually use it. We don't just put it in our pocket. It's mostly, for most shops, you get a hazmat fee. It's just a way to make more money on the ticket. We use it to fund the recycling. So if you're going to go to somebody like Farley's Auto and say, hey, what are you doing with your oil filters? He can't afford to do what we did. He doesn't have the volume we do. You know, his margins are lower. He charges less for his oil change. So without some kind of incentive to not put oil in the trash from somebody who's watching, nobody's going to not do that. You know, we just did it because we're like, okay, we don't want to be that company. Our customers are really interested in e-waste and all that type of thing. I mean, I get challenged by customers. I get challenged even things like synthetic oils tend to come from tar sands in Alberta. So I have to explain that's not where we buy it, you know, that kind of thing. So I have a customer base that's very interested in what we do with stuff, and it's a big deal. And I've never had to advertise it because in Nome, if you do something, everybody knows it. You know, there's no secrets in Nome. So that's what it took, is 50,000 plus, and then also the man hours it takes to do it. And then making sure that oil filters aren't ending up in the trash, and making sure that they're getting in, you know, punctured, drained, and then we incinerate the filter so there's no oil. So if you're doing a 5-quart oil change and 1 quart of oil is going in the trash, you're not really, you're a toxic waste producer. So the city just lets that happen. And then all the coolant that gets collected in the city, anytime a car gets worked on, that coolant's going down the drain. It's a ethylene glycol, it's poison. So, I don't know, without the city saying, hey, you can't do that, because what I'd like to be able to do is say, look, I can recycle your coolant. I'll come pick it up. I've got these big 300-gallon eggs that we're taking the coolant, and we have select customers that have the kind of car that you can use recycled coolant in. That's a whole nother technical discussion. But without some type of incentive to do that, there's no reason why I would try to invest in being a collector. And there's no collector that would operate in town. So in Anchorage, a coolant recycler comes and visits you. And they monetize it, and they charge you to collect the coolant because you're required to not antifreeze down the drain. So that's that. My main point on telling that whole story was this is what it cost us to do it. RJ is not going to do that. There's just no way they can do it. Farley Auto, and Matt's not doing it. And if you think of all, you know, and we're a big chunk of the auto repair pie, they think of all the vehicles that are breaking down in Nome and getting serviced, and it's a lot of stuff. That's just kind of, everybody's looking the other way, doesn't really pay attention. And without some type of government saying, you can't do this anymore, then nobody's going to start figuring out how to get rid of it, and then nobody can invest in, because what you're looking at is you've got this solved, but what I see is a whole lot of bad stuff still going out in that dump site, going down the drain, ending up in somebody's backyard, dumping it in a hole in the ground, that kind of thing. So I'm not saying today do it, but eventually some type of plan's got to be thought about. How do you handle all this stuff? And some of it may get fixed by the the e-revolution as far as electric vehicles. But they have coolant and a lot of it. There's larger cooling capacity on a Tesla than there is on a car because they got a very hot battery that will catch on fire. And they have to keep it warm in the winter. So one of the real things that I've run into is we service copy machines. So Boynton bids on a copy machine, and they say this is how much the copy machine costs, and then Coeric charges 50 cents a pound. So I really want to give Coeric my copy machine. But if you add 50 cents a pound on a 700-pound copy machine, that's $350. We're out of the game because my competition doesn't have to. Because they don't have, there's nobody saying I can't dump the copy machine in the dump. My competition doesn't have to. So they're not putting in their bids. Boynton's not putting in their bids. Here I have this copy machine that I really want to take to Coeric. So instead I take it to the dump, and Coeric picks it up. So I drag it out there, and then that's what's happening, is you guys are picking it back up, bringing it back to the e-waste site.
And then calling you and being like, Roland.
Right. Because there's no governmental thing saying you can't dump a copy machine in our site. So as a business, I'm always kind of caught by, there's no rules about what you can and cannot do. So my competition is just throwing coolant down the drain, and they're throwing oil waste out the trash can, and they're so we tried it, and it's expensive. The equipment we have now is dying because the first year we burned all our cardboard. In fact, we burned as much as anything we could get because we were trying to get the heat out of it, to heat my 48 building, the back building. But we found out quickly it's not meant to run all day. They make this stuff and they say it's great, but when you try to run it all day, then you find out there's a lot of expensive to running it. So we're probably going to go to stage 2, which is a better incinerator. And then I'm thinking as a business, I'm eventually going to have a smokestack, and I don't know. If I can do it, why isn't the city burning the trash for heat or electricity and all that kind of thing? So, but the main thing for me as a business is if it's not equitable, if every business doesn't have the same rules, then my competition is going to throw the copy machine in the trash and have a $350 advantage on a machine, and I'm out of the game. Boynton's out of the game. And the only way that gets solved is somebody has the willpower to say, this is our citywide comprehensive plan for toxic waste, oil waste, filters, coolant, e-waste, and as a business, if the game is not level between all the different businesses, then we can't do it.
I feel like that's kind of where we've been as far as like the rules and the ability to have a solution, so we don't want to make these, we don't want to make these rules if we don't have the solution to deal with it. And that's where I feel like this recycle center is like, it could be the answer to so much of this stuff, but we don't have those rules in place to make it necessary, or, it's just that whole chicken or the egg thing. I know.
Anybody else back there that wanted to share some wisdom with us?
Honestly, I could just say something. So I'm Vanessa Tabo, and I'm the environmental coordinator under Nome, and I've been working with her for going on 7 years now. So I've watched the process of it just being me and her to growing our environmental program to where we have several other offices and employees to our department, as well as growing our program. And I've seen all of it. I've seen what gets tossed in the trash. We've gone to businesses and got them involved. We've done pickups. We've tried to minimize and try to get as much as we can, but we just don't have the capacity. We've gotten partnered with Solemn and Native Corporation. We're like, okay, you do the businesses and we'll do the residential and just keep doing what we're doing. Then they lost their employees, so that kind of slowly dwindled, and soon there was regular pickups for the bars, regular pickups for the restaurants. So we've seen a big influx, and of course COVID happened, and then it just all crashed. So right now we're still trying to get more people again to start recycling, because during that time it just all slowed down. But with this potential opportunity, there's so many things that we could potentially do. Cardboard, there's people making bricks, different usable materials, pellets for pellet stoves, glass products. A lot of like glass recycling is non-existent pretty much for the whole world. But reuse things are happening, like crushing. I just seen this business that just happened, started in 2020, where they like crush all their sand to a sand and they resell it, because sand is now becoming a commodity. I mean, something that people want because of whatever's happening around the world. So they're using it for barriers, all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of potential that could happen, that could come out of this recycling center, not just for what our city could do, but there's potential for revenue, additional revenue. So just want to add that.
Great, thank you.
So I guess my question is, what are the next steps? Like, how do I move forward knowing if I can apply for this funding with, with the city as a partner? How do I move forward with, figuring out, all the different little steps?
Well, you'll have to have a couple more conversations here with Glenn
Okay.
on that. I guess from everything that I've been listening to around the table here, I think, folks are interested and recognize that recycling is something that we ought to do, that it's going to save us in other areas, and then just figuring out how we can do this in partnership with someone else. The city isn't looking to add more employees or responsibilities, I guess, on our side, I would say. But being either the conduit or the partner, and certainly the having the regulatory authority, which would have to be part of this. And I also think then a little bit of discussion with Alaska Waste probably needs to occur. So unless somebody thinks otherwise, I think we then need to have another conversation on the thing, and that we would like to see something happen on it. And if I think others around here have said they have other ideas, and we can share some of those as well, to see what we can actually come up with that will benefit Nome. And when I was one of my questions to this when Gwen was mentioning it was, or I guess I was talking with Ken about the thing, is how much are we then ending up being the dump site for the region on the thing? And you answered that question that no, it was simply coming in here and being consolidated and then going elsewhere. Because over the course of time, there have been efforts to clean up other sites around the region, many of them with asbestos and those types of things. Contractors were looking at Nome saying, we want to put them into the Nome landfill, and it's like, no, we don't want that ongoing headache or responsibility for the monitoring of that. There are one or two or three things that are in situ there now. The first one had to do with the high school and something that was going on there. So, it was a cost savings measure on the city's part to, document that one little site. And over time, it seems like two or three other things have been added to that. But, not to have, Nome become the dump site for the region on the thing. And so that obviously is not part of this deal. So Anybody else parting thoughts, or are you good with Glenn and Nome working together for a little bit?
Yeah, I promised about this. This is a great idea, and hopefully, it sounds like the building blocks are there. Just gotta fill in the details, figure out who's paying for what, and make it happen. But it's I think it's a great program, potential for the community to solve a lot of problems. Good job.
Cool. All right, well,
Thanks,
we
sorry,
have
I was
one
late.
opportunity there to, anybody else that's here that wants to talk about recycling? And if not, we'll take a 2-minute break here and then we'll into our regular meeting. Thank you, Nome,
Thanks,
appreciate the
guys.
presentation. Thank you, Vanessa, for showing up, and all the rest of you for on it.
Not even just here and now.
Thank you, kind sir.
Great job. At the back, I just ordered it.
So I don't know.
Pretty secret as they actually like
City Hall.
Yes.
Looks like I showed a little had a
Oh, yeah, interesting
And I
stuff.
called her.
Yep.
Yeah. Curious about that?
Start to sell them cheap.
And lots of people. It looks great on you, actually.
I'm surprised. Because I know we don't have anything to do.
Right.
The accident I got back and then, luckily.
I
think when
Right.
I started, I made a big deal about getting me one of those round.
What type of facility you need, how much you need.
I want to
So, use the oil.
So I self-program, when I go to bed, I change it from 68 to 73. Then I have to get up,
Over.
early to, make it cold to turn it up again, so. When last minute, they decide.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, cool. Yes, you too.
Never said that.
The clerk pays the motors. He'll say when he's ready, he'll be like, okay, are we all ready? And I'll ask the clerk to read the roll. He'll announce the time for.
Got some grapes here.
Turkey.
I know.
Yeah, he's not, he's
Probably responsible.
We just stayed there.
Thanks for your
Oh.
help.
To make a note.
I tried to.
You know,
I see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you've ever looked through this thing, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
We're gonna give you stuff.
Oh, did you?
Yes, and Isaac, we touched it up. Oh, yeah, what happens to these is this particular capacitor, he looks in there, oh yeah, that looks funky.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
And all the computers.
On the meter.
And the MacBooks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we have a lot of, I'm just talking about coming through.
See, I never even thought about cartridges. We've done away here, and I never even thought about.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big deal, actually, like,
Yeah.
in the real world, you know.
I'm sure.
I was thinking the same thing. Education, you gotta make some mandatory.
Yes.
I never even.
Perfect. They don't already.
I should.
Yeah, I mentioned Ken more.
Oh, which ones go to which?
This week, but maybe like tomorrow, I'll do all of them.
Out of town, out of town.
Do it earlier or I'll do it later.
Probably message them again and be like, post this part when they by 10 of what they have, and then they get through 3, and then he breaks down.
Yeah.
Order a totally different one.
Right. Yeah, yeah. We have age and stuff.
Size.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Okay. Yeah, because
Okay.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Forklifts around in there, you gotta use
So what effects does the
Low enough we're not seeing. There was a challenge.
So in business, ordinances also.
See you later.
It's the transmittal letter.
even though they have an
It's
announcement,
started-
gets diluted
Even though they have an announcement thing yet.
I could have had the same letter.
Okay, so we can do it.
Occasionally, I'll make an exception, but usually business.
Yes.
Have to put a trash dump by so that people don't poop.
Right.
But they didn't comment that. Separate out.
Give about 3 minutes here and then we'll come to order at 7:15.
Yana, thanks for having me.
I'm not doing anything.
But yeah.
According to our code, really important. Your votes is needed to pass.
No,
not by chance. For everybody.
Yes.
That's what it is.
And
Actually, I was wishing
Kids
was
Yeah.
because she's
but
hired her.
there's an ordinance could be changed here.
Yes, right.
And so
Yeah, because if
you do the roll call, so he'll say like, you read it.
The kids started when there's no
there's not a,
right?
yeah, there's not a way.
Teach them all about all this stuff and then they
So the mayor or
plastic bottle in the trash, you know, right, it's hard.
okay, well, if that's all it, then we'll close the debate, yada, yada, yada. And we'll just.
Molly's puppies are so
chastising
good. All of them. Get it on
And if it passes,
Or, yeah, right.
Oh,
I was bummed we didn't have that back one then out there. Maggie and I like.
Number is the word.
Especially like metal.
I guess the chair will say.
Place your refrigerator.
Oh my God.
Actually,
From protest, it was a.
What's up? Yeah, this weekend, started with champagne.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Oh, you know how streets are. And he's got a K&K recycling.
I was there.
And so.
He's got this huge
I always have to rotate.
of cardboard and paper.
Oh.
So he like, you know, shreds them. He's got his big
That's where they're going this weekend. Long-term care.
and he presses.
Come over there and watch.
Always remember that it's.
We're going in
East Valley.
First guys.
It's not like those.
Yep. Both the boys and the girls.
Yeah.
Right now, it's bad. You see it, it's just picturing, it's picking up all the sound, it's bouncing.
Like,
Right.
expect that. Wax.
Usually it's.
I might do it like that, but not a patrol.
All right, folks, it is 7:15. Today is Monday, January 9th, 2023. Call the regular meeting of the Nome Common Council to order. Mr. Clerk, will you call the roll to establish a quorum?
Councilmember Henderson.
Here.
Councilmember Doug Johnson. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Councilmember Mark Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Martinson,
Here.
Councilmember Piscoya is excused, Councilmember Topcock is stuck in an airport, and
Excused.
Youth Representative Miller has been trying to get on for a little bit. Hopefully she will be able to join us. We have quorum.
Okay, thank you. That brings us on then to approval of agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Henderson, Councilmember Martinson. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that, do we need a
Oh,
executive
yeah,
session?
we need an executive
Oh, okay. The executive session that is actually listed on the back of the agenda will occur. And subject will be legal matters that could adversely affect the finances of the city. Nothing else? Roll call?
Councilmember Doug Johnson. Councilmember Mark Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinson.
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That brings us on to approval of minutes. We have December 12th, 2022, regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion to adopt these minutes as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Henderson, Councilmember Martinson. If there are no noted additions, deletions, or ministerial corrections, roll call please on its adoption.
Councilmember Mark Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinson.
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Doug Johnson. Motion carries.
Thank you. That brings us then to communications. First communication is on page 60 from the preschool, talking about a fundraising auction that they're having, the 34th annual, and asking for donations from the community. We give a hefty cash donation to them on an annual basis, but if the city manager has some other little trinket type things that we can pass on, that would be great.
We will look at that. They have, having dinner with Bryant.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
They can bid on that.
Sounds great. All right, thank you. The next communication, page 61, is from Nancy Mendenhall, expressing some concerns with regard to micro-nuclear energy, talking about her familiarity with the Hanford site, and just urging caution if action is to be taken. So we thank Ms. Mendenhall for her communication. The next communication, page 63, is notice to the public on and our sales and bed tax taxpayers as to the changes that went into effect starting January 10th on sales tax and bed tax. And Mr. Clerk, did you want to comment at all on that?
Yes, so we brought this forward as a resolution last July, and there was some discussion, and we did decrease our overall contract with them to just only look at the sales and bed tax collection. In the next few months, so local gov has proved to be pretty customer service oriented. They've kind of bent over backwards trying to work with us. I've got hope that this is going to make things a lot easier. The site is pretty simple. There are going to be 2 trainings for the public, both on January 18th. If the public or if members of the public are not able to make it to these trainings, local gov will reach out for one-on-one assistance to get them into the system.
Thank you. So this is to allow folks to file online for those particular tax obligations. And you mentioned these trainings. If there are people, I guess, do people still have the opportunity to turn in paper forms to the city if they're not comfortable or savvy in using this system.
Paper forms, no.
So,
We will have a kiosk that is set up in City Hall. And at this point, it's still 3 to 4 weeks out, according to them. We're trying to push it get it set up as quick as possible. There is a resolution that is a little bit, I think it's the last one under new business. Glenn and I are asking for a little bit of administrative leeway to assist in the transition. I'm a little bit worried that since we're starting on the 10th, people have already filed. Some people are a little bit nervous about filing. There's only 10 days before the deadline. So we're asking for the authorization to administratively forgive small amounts of penalty and interest to aid in the transition to this new system.
okay, so people need to learn how, and the city clerk's office will assist as well in making sure you get the training and get going in the right direction. Next communication then, page 64 from Nome Discovery Tours. Recap from Robin Johnson on activities from 2022 and noting some of the improvements that the city made to facilities, thanking City Hall, Jeremy, and the Public Works for their efforts, and also the city for coordinating and sponsoring Cleanup Day after the cyclone. Looking forward, let's hope to partner with city further to improve visitor experience in Nome. We will follow up later with some discussion points as we strive to make things run even smoother next year. So that from Robin Johnson at Nome Discovery Tours. The next communication is on page 65, is from the superintendent of school, Burgess, with regard to ASCA restroom remodel project. The city funded those bathroom remodeling project, and with the understanding that the school was filing for a reimbursement, and that has now been received in the amount of $259,000. Now the school is asking that those funds be appropriated by the city to an ADA entrance security project that is estimated to be $328,000. Essentially, they're asking to keep the money and spend it elsewhere, but they have identified a specific project. So is there a motion to authorize the school district to utilize the $259,000, I'm rounding, from the restroom remodel project towards the district AGA entrance security project, and that if in the future those funds are reimbursed by the state, that they come back to the city unless there's further discussion.
I'd like to wait for a motion. If you need a motion for we discuss
We need a
it.
motion.
Okay, well, I'll just make the motion so we can discuss it.
Okay, the
Second.
motion the motion
As
as I stated it. Essentially, you can't just say to discuss it. Yeah.
A motion to basically allow this.
I understand. Somebody else.
We'll shorten it. The school district can apply the $258,551 reimbursed by the state for the bathroom project to the $328,168 ADA entrance security project. And if funds are reimbursed by the state at a later date, those come to the city unless there's further agreement.
I'll make the motion, but yes, I'll make it.
Councilmember Henderson, Councilmember Martinson, discussion.
Thank you. So wouldn't a request like this normally be handled through the budgeting process?
It would come through, well, I guess for spending the additional money, for this project would come up. The issue of the reimbursement probably is more germane at this point in time.
So, and I don't think I was on the council when we approved this, at least I'm assuming it wasn't. So the city funded 100% of this project, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Which is about $369,000.
Yep.
And we did it with the understanding that the school district would request reimbursement.
Correct.
And so that's happened, it's all worked successfully. So normally, if the school didn't make a request to keep it, it would go back into the city's general fund.
Correct.
And be used for whatever.
Correct.
And so I guess my thinking is, normally the Nome Public Schools submits both a capital and an operating budget to the city council for your review and approval through the normal process. And why wouldn't we go through that process when we're looking at everything instead of doing it separately? I guess that's my question. I guess my personal position is that I would rather see it go through the budget process where we're looking at all the expenses and everything else, rather than just, saying, go ahead and, keep the, I guess, only 70% of it's reimbursable, so $258,000. I would rather see that go through. I think the project probably does make sense, but I guess from a financial standpoint, I think it's better to go through the budgeting process on it, unless there's reasons not to, like construction schedules or something like that. That's my position.
It seems to me like the budgeting process is right around the corner too, and unless they need to
Exactly.
have this answer immediately, they can just hold on to the funds until we
Yeah.
decide otherwise. They don't have to instantly give them back right now.
Right, because when we go through the budgeting process, this might be another hole that we just have to account for that. I'd rather it be included in the overall discussion. That's my 2 cents.
City manager, do you have any comment on?
Well, you know me, when it comes to money, I like to bring it into city coffers.
Right.
I have not really had much conversation with Jamie on this. I do know this has been a priority for her just before Christmas. I'm not, and I support what they're doing from, an enhancement of the security into Nome and replacing the concrete. I don't know exactly why she's moving quickly on this, if there's a timeline issue. Because remember, when you agree to the budget, we really don't go out and bid anything for any project until the budget is passed, unless we get permission from you. So it may be more of a timeliness, but I probably would say is, let me give her a call and say the council is inclined to do this, but we just want to know why, this needs to happen outside the budget process. Because right now, actually, just so you know, and Nikki, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we are getting ready to introduce the first amendment to our 2022, 2023 budget at the next council meeting. Am I not correct, or is it the first meeting in February? So we could include that in this year's budget amendment too.
So I guess I added the little thing about once this other project was done, that they then we're not guaranteed that they could just keep the money again.
Well, I think there's a question, and and John, actually, when you were talking about this, I'm not so sure, and I can't say this for sure, but I'm not sure this is part of what they have in front of the state for reimbursement. This may be outside of that reimbursement, because they have so many requests, and as you have heard before, we keep getting pushed down the ladder, because nothing that we typically have is considered critical or an emergency. But let me get some real, as fully accurate answers, so it'll either be in your next budget packet, in your next meeting packet, or it'll be on the budget adjustment in February.
Okay, the motion belongs to the body. Is there objection from the body to having that motion withdrawn? Hearing no objection, the motion is withdrawn and the city manager will provide additional information at a later meeting. Thank you. Okay, down to item F, poster regarding internet affordability and accessibility town hall meeting. There'll be a meeting, a busy week of meetings this week, but on Thursday at 5 p.m. in these chambers. And this is hosted by the Municipal League as part of a series of listening sessions, across the state. So anybody that has interest in internet and digital communication, you have an opportunity on the 12th, Thursday at 5 p.m. Next item, page 67, Missouri Peninsula Subsistence Regional Advisory Council draft agenda. The SPSRAC is scheduled to convene meetings March 22nd and 23rd at 9 o'clock daily here in Nome at the Mini Convention Center. And public comments are welcome for each agenda item. If anybody has any additions that they'd like to see done. And that then brings us to citizens' comments. This is time for opportunity for members of the public to address the council on any subject of the choosing. And we'll open the floor to that. Okay. I guess the first one's coming up before, so Kathy, you'll wait. That's fine. Go ahead, Kirsten.
Thanks. My name is Kirsten Bay, and I'm a member of the Nome Kennel Club, and I really appreciate that the city has put a resolution on the agenda today to give the Kennel Club some money to redo our tripod staking project that, we really put in a lot of work last winter and spring and getting those tripods up, and then the storm in September destroyed them all, so we really appreciate it. And whoever wrote the resolution, great wording, it was really good. I thought I was going to have to come and argue that you addressed this, and then I got this message from Bryant, here's the resolution we're proposing, so we really appreciate that.
And can, I guess there was a dollar amount in there. Is that dollar amount adequate for what you?
Yes, that's very generous, and we've sent requests out to a lot of the other organizations that, use it. And we're hoping to get some additional, funding from other organizations to be able to put the project together again.
Great. City manager?
They requested between $1,000 and $2,500, so we went to the top number.
Great.
Yeah, the total, it was, I think about $8,500 was spent on materials the last year. So we sent this out to about 8 different organizations. So we're hoping that we'll come up with the funds to be able to redo the project.
Super. That's very important, not just to the dog mushers, but the
right, everybody in the community.
Public between
absolutely
various villages here, and we applaud you guys for taking the lead and initiative on the safety matter for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just second what Kirsten said. My name's Jessica Lemare. I'm the president of the Nome Kennel Club, and we really appreciate your resolution for the funds. Like you said, it goes not just for the mushers, but the community in general. So we hope to get those back up there as soon as possible and make it a little safer for everyone. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And then I did have one that I was going to call on specifically, and Kathy Arejo, if you would move forward. Kathy is with Boise State University and is here to collect some information on energy stuff in Nome, and I'll let her tell you more directly what her mission and objective is. Kathy, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's really good to be here. I flew in Saturday, and I'll be here till Saturday of the end of this week. As John said, I'm from Boise State University, so I teach on energy there and do research on energy system change. I also run a center in my wearing one of my other hats, and I don't know if you know Gwen Holdman. She's been here before. She runs the ACEP, the Alaska Center for Energy and Power. So my center is similar to that, and she and I partner together on different kinds of projects. We've been intersecting a lot lately with the work that we're doing, and I've just been, I see so much opportunity with Alaska in terms of your energy choices. And so I'm happy to be here and working with my teammate, Cassie Kerner, who's back at Boise State right now and joining me sometimes virtually, as well as partners. And I'll mention the consortium that I'm working with just to give you a little background. So the consortium's called the Emerging Energy Markets Analysis Group. It's based out of Idaho National Lab, which is in the state where my university is. And it includes as partners, University of Alaska, University of Wyoming, University of Michigan, Boise State, where Cassie and I are based, and MIT, along with Idaho National Lab. And so this group looks at different parts of the country and actually globally at areas where we can help, where there's opportunity to adapt energy and maybe improve the situation. So long story short, they're funding my teammate Cassie and me to be asking questions and really getting an understanding of what the opportunities are here in Nome. So for the week, I've already started talking with people, and we've had some great conversations, and I'll be continuing those conversations. So I'm happy to chat with all of you. I've got one business card on me right now, so maybe we'll have to figure out another way to reach out. But I will be at some of the meetings that John mentioned this week, the workforce development one and the Kerouac leadership meeting that's tomorrow and Wednesday. So feel free to reach out. Just so you know a little bit more about me, I like to consider myself a historian of energy system change. And so that goes kind of beyond pure engineering and economics. They're important, but also to understand kind of the backstory of what works for communities. And I think you've got some amazing choices in front of you. So I'm happy to be here to just understand what people think about it and synthesize that and hopefully share that with John and the rest of you as you make your choices going forward. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Kathy.
I guess I'll leave this here.
All right, yeah, that'd be great. And Ken has been interfacing with Kathy on a regular basis, so anybody that needs to get a hold of her can certainly coordinate through Ken. All right, thank you. Are there others in the audience that would like to address the council? Good evening, Chief and Chief. All right, no takers there. All right, we'll move on then to new business. First items we have is ordinance 230101. And just a quick, will you read that ordinance by title?
O230101, an ordinance of the Nome Common Council, Nome, Alaska, amending Nome Code of Ordinances 2.30.040, reducing the number of members of the Public Safety Advisory Commission.
Thank you. This ordinance was discussed with and is at the recommendation of the advisory committee as it's been significantly difficult to try to come up with 9 members that meet all of the criteria and causes issues with quorums. So the number would go from 9 to 7 and a quorum would go from 5 to 4. So motion to pass this on to second reading, public hearing, and final passage.
Make that motion.
Second.
Councilmember Mark Johnson, Councilmember Henderson. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Henderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Doug Johnson. Councilmember Mark Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Martins.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is with regard to bargaining agreements. Address this. Sir.
Hello, Ken Morgan, on behalf of your joint utility system. So we have 3 labor agreements related to utility operations. The agreements expired at the end of calendar year 22. And of course, we started negotiations all. Started with the notion of pursuing a 3-year agreement as typically. And after discussion with the board and with the unions, came to the notion that perhaps we should just pursue a single year due to the extreme inflation that we've been seeing this past year and not really having all the comfort that we'd like to have with where to point beyond the first year. So what you see in front of you is 3 separate labor agreements for a just only relating to the economic terms of the agreements. All other terms are the same.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
What is a 5% increase to cap contributions to the medical insurance?
So each union has a healthcare contribution amount that's established by contract, and it is capped.
So the NJU is increasing their contribution by 5%?
Yes.
Good.
Up to.
Up to. Okay.
Depending on what the
Whatever
structure
there
is.
is. Yeah.
And for you, 2 and the IBEW are below the cap.
And I understand that the NGO's board has already approved these. What's the normal duration of a typical bargaining agreement? Is it 3 years? So we'll be having, management will be having a continuous discussion, assuming starting some point. I'm assuming for another 3-year renewal, or are we going to be looking at yearly renewals?
Well, hopeful that it will be a 3-year. The volatility. Talk to the board, talk to the unions, see what folks are comfortable with. It's our preference to do that a 3-year period.
That's all. Thank you. Are there questions from the council member? Okay, if not, that then brings us to the resolutions to approve the 3 agreements. There are resolutions 2301, 01, 02, and 03. And unless there's objection, we'll do that as one package. See no objection, Mr. Clerk, will you read those resolutions by title?
R230101, a resolution approving the labor agreement between Nome Joint Utility System and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 1547 through December 31, 2023. R230102, a resolution approving the labor agreement between the Nome Joint Utility System and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 302 through December 31, 2023. R230103, a resolution approving the labor agreement between Nome Joint Utility System and the Alaska Public Employees Association, American Federation of Teachers, Local 6138 through December 31, 2023.
Thank you. And just for further information, the IBEW covers the line crew, 302 covers the power plant, and 8 covers office and wards. Is there a motion to adopt? No. A motion to adopt the resolutions?
Yes, there is no motion on, no motion is
Is there a
on the
motion to
floor.
adopt resolutions 230101, 02, and 03?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Councilmember Henderson, Councilmember Martinson. Further discussion? Indication, a roll call please on their adoption.
Councilmember Doug Johnson. Councilmember Mark Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinson.
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
That then brings us to the resolution 230110. I'm sorry. I missed this one. Resolution 230104. Read that by title.
R 230104, a resolution allocating $2,500 of NSCDC Community Benefits Share Recovery Funds to the Nome Kennel Club for repair and replacement of trail markers along the Iditarod Trail from Topcock Head to the city of Nome.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt resolution 230104?
I'll take that motion.
Second.
Councilmember Mark Johnson, Councilmember Martinson, and the person so eloquently discussed or spoke to this resolution previously. Don't know that we need any further information. Call for a roll call on its adoption.
Councilmember Henderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Doug Johnson. Councilmember Mark Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That will bring us to resolution 230105. Mr. Clerk, read that by title, please.
R 230105, a resolution approving a letter of agreement between the City of Nome and the City of Nome Employees Association, Local 6141, APEA, AFT, AFL-CIO.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, anything specific on this?
Well, actually, in your code of ordinances, there are two positions that are in the union that, according to your code of ordinances, should never have been in the union, and this is one of the two. So, the other position is the director of the library, but she continues to stay within the union, and with the departure of Dr. Amy Chan Phillips, or Phillips Chan, excuse me, this gives us an opportunity to address this and put it back into the exempt personnel.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt?
We'll make that motion.
I will. Thank you. Second. Councilmember Martinson, Councilmember Henderson. Discussion. Roll call, please, on its adoption.
Councilmember Doug Johnson. Councilmember Mark Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinson.
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And the final item, resolution 230106. Mr. Clerk, by title, please.
R 230106, a resolution authorizing the city manager or city clerk to administratively forgive small amounts of penalty and interest incurred by sales and bed tax remitting businesses as a result of the transition to the local gov online tax platform provided by Azavar Solutions.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt resolution 230106?
Oh, I will make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Councilmember Martinson, Councilmember Mark Johnson. Just, I guess, one question. Somewhere I saw a limit of $100. Oh, in the last whereas, is that adequate?
I don't know what's.
Okay. Is there a motion to increase it? Is there a motion to amend the last whereas to change from 100 to 500?
I will make that motion. I'll second. That's just on an amendment, right?
Yes.
Second.
Yeah. Councilmember Henderson and Councilmember Mark Johnson. Any discussion?
I just want to clarify, I mean, it seems like a lot, but I think what we've accomplished here is giving administration the ability to manage any things that happen with mistakes or, unexpected transition process, I think. So we don't have to, have a long list, in the next couple council meetings to deal with some of the transition issues.
That's exactly. I was going back and forth as to whether or not if you would prefer to do this ahead of time or if you wanted me to bring a list of everything tonight.
Ahead of time. You did the right thing. Roll call, please, on the amendment.
Councilmember Martinson.
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Doug Johnson. Councilmember Mark Johnson.
Yes.
Motion to amend carries.
Thank you. Resolution R 230106 as amended
More discussion.
is now up for discussion.
Oh, that's what I thought you were saying.
Council
Push the vote.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at Councilmember Martinson there, counting the clock. Councilmember Mark Johnson, you have the floor.
So under discussion on the third whereas it says for the first month of transition. So you're basically talking about the month of January. Is that correct or?
That is correct. I wanted to put I wanted to put an end date on it.
I agree with the end date. I guess I semi agree with the end date, but I did hear you say that staff was going to get a computer module or something that every that they can assist people in this transition. Because I guess I heard several comments when this first came out and Nome announced from businesses that were concerned that they were not sure that they could adhere to this, or they weren't sure about this. They're used to doing the paper filing for 25 years plus, and they enjoy doing that. Enjoy is a liberal word, but as opposed to doing it online, and so they're concerned about that transition. So I was kind of thinking about introducing an amendment to include further months. I'd be ready to go with the month.
Okay, how about if we change it to the first quarter?
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion to change it to the first quarter of the transition.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Mark Johnson, Councilmember Martinson. Roll call, please, on that second amendment.
Councilmember Henderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Doug Johnson. Councilmember Mark Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember.
Yes.
There's a typo.
You had one? No problem. I figured I was next.
All right, I take it that carried.
Motion carries. Motion to amend carries.
All right, motion to amend twice carries. All right, that takes us to the end of our scheduled business.
Wait. Don't we have to vote on the whole motion now?
Isn't that what we just?
No, that was the second amendment.
Oh,
Now we're on
okay,
the main
all right,
motion.
Okay, all right. Now then, the vote on the resolution as twice amended.
Councilmember Mark Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinson.
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Doug Johnson. Motion as amended carries.
Thank you. All right, now, Mr. Morton.
Good evening, Ken Morton on behalf of Vernon Joint Utility System. Operation since the last meeting in December. The most interesting things to talk about the power plant. On Christmas Day, we had a spring underneath the push rod follower assembly, all beneath a cylinder break, and broke a bunch of other things, and lost some spring fragments down in the oil pan. So of course we immediately shipped it number 15. That's all good. We have parts on order, and they should already be here. The challenge, of course, is getting past Anchorage now. Hope to have it up and going next week, but we're going to replace springs and all the other cylinders. This is an engine that's scheduled for overhaul this spring. And later on, December 30th, about 10:43, number 15, our other port Scylla unit, our other primary unit, had a Metroflex coupling crack. That's essentially a rubber bushing, if you will. Helps handle vibration. It has high temperature coolant in it, maybe 20 psi, and it cracked and it dropped all the coolant on the floor. The generator automatically shut itself down to protect itself. Everybody scrambled to the power plant. The line crew headed out to do what they need to do in order to get us a place to start up the old plant. Simultaneous with that, the power plant crew said, hey, it's just a coupling. We have couplings. We swapped it out. Had another tote of coolant. In about an hour and 10 minutes, the engine was going again. And by midnight on December 30th, engine 15 was back up and going. No further issues with that. They're inspected at least every hour, and this just happened. Also related to the power plant, we enjoyed a air quality full compliance inspection by ADEC between Christmas and New Year's, and no issues came out of that. That's the bulk of those things that are interesting. Any questions about this or anything else related to your Nome joint utility system? Sir? No, I'm just kidding.
No question, but I did want to commend the utility crew for jumping on that issue at that time of night. It was pretty cold out that night, I understand. I happened to be out of town, got a call from one guy who was very concerned. John said they're on it. So it was really good to see that it works when you need to put it to work.
I was already in my truck when the power went out, and so I just vectored, and I was the third person to make it. I mean, it's really an all hands on deck when that happens.
I was probably number 14 because I stayed in bed for another 10 minutes thinking, "I'll get it back."
Yeah, don't be in a rush.
But no, there were lots of people that responded immediately, and that's the good thing about it. When things like that happen, it doesn't matter what department you work in, you show up. And I appreciate all of that happening. Mr. City Manager, welcome home.
Yes.
You had a great trip.
Working holiday, renovating my son's house. Got some medical issues that don't allow him to get it done. So we took on something more than I think I can chew right now. So I want to thank Chip Lieber for serving as the acting manager. Nothing disastrous happened like the last time the acting manager was running the place. I also want to recognize we had, a number of employees that were going away for the holidays get stuck and did not make it to their families at Christmas time. So working with those folks, their holiday. Really, the two big things that are going on right now is the renovations over at the rec center. At the rec center, we have torn the Chips and his staff and Cole and his staff have torn up that kitchen and are replacing it with a new stove and grill, new flooring, and a new sink, which you approved some money from the community benefit share. So that should be ready, obviously, by Iditarod. The flooring is supposed to be coming up in the next week or so. So it really will be a nice improvement by the staff to have a much nicer looking kitchen. And I also, improvements over at the visitor center are still ongoing, and new carpets down. It smells cleaner because it is cleaner. It smells fresh, and obviously we have to have that up and running by Iron Dog. And tomorrow and running through Thursday are a couple of different programs happening down at the Mini. There is the Queric Leadership Summit and talking about infrastructure and leveraging and working together, and the mayor is going to be one of the opening speakers. And on Thursday, one more limited is to a job summit and talking about employment needs and training in the city of Nome. And, I put together a list, generic and broad, of at least 26 areas that we need employees in, that we always seem to be lacking employees, not just the city, but other organizations. And what do we do to address that? And we have also hired a new police officer, and he will be starting up here in the next month or so. That's our goal. And he will be a year-round resident of Nome. So, and he is Alaska certified, so he will start out as an office of PO2 because he has that Alaska certification. So, yeah, obviously we still have more positions to fill, but it's not due to the lack of trying. It's just finding people. This is a very difficult time finding police officers in general, no matter, not just here, but throughout the country. But as you've seen, the unemployment rate is 3.5%, which technically says we're at full employment in this country. So that is, but the summit is still important because we need to identify and work with our young people going through high school and coming out, what opportunities there are for them here in Nome, and to get them properly trained. We'll get them into a, lane where they can get the education that they need. So, John, your folks are on my list, on that list too,
Okay.
which I sent over to you.
Okay, sounds great. Well, as you said, the recruitment things have been difficult, continue to be, but Mike and Bob, thanks for diligence in it. One is better than none, but I know you're looking for more, so. Thank you, Chance. All right, that brings us into citizens' comments, second opportunity. Anybody want? Come on, Ms. Bay.
Just want to say thanks again. Thanks for putting it on the agenda and thanks for passing it. We'll be looking forward to putting the tripods up again. And we also want to let you know that we are scheduled to have some dog races first one Saturday, weather permitting, and so hopefully we will have some events going on throughout the winter. So, thanks.
Great, thank you. Are there others? Ms. Diana,
Diana Hacker, Nome Nugget newspaper, editor and publisher.
Oh.
And I'm speaking of sad news of the passing of Sandra Medeiros on December 31st. And Sandra has covered council meetings for not just years, but decades, and her understanding of city business and the need of the public and keeping a keen eye on what you guys are doing has greatly enhanced the public's knowledge of government and the city and its needs, and we're heartbroken to note her passing. Just wanted to let you all know that that occurred. I wanted to honor Sandra with that because she was part of all of us here.
absolutely, thank you. Are there others that would like to speak?
Shout out real quick. I should like you a shout out for your fireworks show that you put on.
Well, it wasn't me. I just placed the order. Yeah, say your name for the record.
Brian Sasky, a citizen.
All right, great. Then if there's not anybody else from the public, then we will go to the roll call, please, for council member comments.
Councilmember Henderson.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge Sandra Medeiros passing. She held us all accountable. Sorry. Can you come back?
Yes, absolutely.
Councilmember Doug Johnson. Councilmember Mark Johnson.
So since my comments didn't get picked up on YouTube last meeting, then rather than add to them or try to do them now, so I attended the AML conference with newly elected council member Cameron Piscoya, and my comments were at the time that from the last time I attended AML, the first time I attended AML many years ago, just the thing was how do you collect more from citizens, because we didn't have enough money in the state or the federal government to ditch out, so we need to figure out a way to collect more taxes. The gist of this AML conference, for the most part, was we have potentially all this potential infrastructure money and other money, and the digital equity program the state is putting on, and how do we implement that in our different regions of Alaska? And so it's kind of a different going at the AML conference, and I also wanted to commend Cameron Piscoya for representing Nome well.
I learned probably more this weekend about recycling, looking through the packet, than probably I have, if ever. So I really hope this project starts to see some traction in the coming months. Sounds like we've got the building blocks of it to put together. Just the various entities need to work together, develop what makes sense. But I really like it, and I think it's got a lot of potential. So something more from us. I hope you'll come back from us, whether it's it's good. I really like it. I'm glad that we're going online for sales tax payments, but I hope that, and I think it's a great move. But I hope we keep in mind that there's a lot of people that have filed these manual returns for many, many years, and that's what they're used to. So I'm sure that we're providing support taxpayers. Somewhat of a challenging transition. And I'm also glad that our utility workers, we're making sure that we're keeping their compensation on par or competitive with the private sector. I think so. Government is sometimes having a hard time keeping up with the rapid wage changes. See that we're making keeping their pay on par, because the last thing I want to happen is if we have a power outage. I don't want the utility workers thinking about it. So, amazed at how quickly these guys get out there and make it happen. So, anyways, that's all I got. Thanks. Thank you.
Councilmember Martz.
I don't have anything.
Okay, that brings it down to me. Brad mentioned fireworks, and I want to thank the Nome Volunteer Fire Department, Randy Olds, specifically, and Greg Teskey, a number of other fire personnel that were involved in pyrotechnic folks for that. But one of the things trying to get back to a semblance of normalcy here after some years of weather being terrible, as well as COVID and everything else getting underway. And so I'm glad that the residents all that I spoke with, everybody had positive comments, and thank the city for making that happen. The NSEDC too, we want to mention and thank NSEDC for the energy subsidy that they provided to the community. There's a little bit of confusion, I think, in that villages around us got credits for heating fuel because they have direct accounts and one vendor, so that it was easy on that end. In order to get the funding more directly to people in Nome, again, there's a utility credit. There are some that are off the grid that will be handled differently, but NSEDC allowed us to use a process from earlier this year, not having to reinvent the entire wheel and add in folks that we felt missed back in March when the program. So there were about 175 people that got added in that missed out the first time. Some of those being replacing about 90 people that had actually moved out of town again, so there were replacements. But regardless, that's 600 $100,000 influx that people definitely noticed during this Christmas holiday. Want to thank Kathy again for being here. This is all part of our look-see on what are our energy needs now, what are they needing in the future, and how do people envision our energy growth, and how to take care of that. And so I hope that whether you are specifically being called out as a member of an organization or a community leader, big customer list that we provided to her, that she's more than willing to talk to anybody that has an interest or input in that process. And then I guess 2022 was a year here of thinking we're pretty much returning to normal. But as sometimes happens, sad things overshadowing. And certainly we're mindful of family, Curtis Borland, passed in a terrible accident. We hope that that did not result in some changes. Handling of the Muscox that we had. Also, Sandra passing a big loss. She had Nome on her mind until her ending days there, and while she couldn't always talk as much as she wanted, she certainly would, in conversations on the phone, you knew what she was saying regardless, and she had a whole lot of love for this community, and we appreciate that. And then I guess as these things all seem to come in threes, may or may not have heard that Steph Anderson passed away as well, right before Christmas. Steph, too, was a long-term member of this community, and our condolences go to his family as well. So, as I say, 2022 ended on a pretty bad note, and we'll simply hope that 2023 is a better year for all of us. With that, time is 8:14, and
Well, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Withdraw that. I did not. We do have an executive session that was necessary. Added at the end here. Motion to recess into executive session.
I'll make that motion. Go to
Second.
executive session.
Thank you, Councilmember Mark Johnson. No objection. We're in executive session. We will do this,
So Sandra would ask, will there be action taken after this?
there will not be action taken following. Thank you for